Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Before we commence,
Avant de reprendre,
very important delegation statements. First, I would like to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic and Demographic Policies of Bulgaria. Please.
Dear Ministers, Your Excellencies, dear delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to address you on behalf of the Government of the Republic of Bulgaria. At the beginning of my short intervention, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the Government of Canada and Ukraine for jointly organization of this event. This year's conference is taking place against the background of extremely challenging circumstances for Ukraine. However, now it is more than ever before important for the Ukrainian political leadership to sustain the upward momentum and to deliver future to curricular reforms, especially in the sphere of justice, rule of law, and fight against corruption. President Zelensky's intention to preserve the European and Euro-Atlantic course of development of his country is a promising sign that Ukraine will continue with its reform agenda. I would also like to underline the importance of implementing all reforms in a way that take into consideration the interest of all layers of society, including national minorities. This is essential for bringing about national accord and strengthening sense of national identity of the highly diverse Ukrainian society. In conclusion, let me reiterate Bulgaria's unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders. Last but not least, I would like to underline that Bulgaria will remain among the staunchest supporters of Ukraine's European choice and aspiration based on the common value of democracy, rule of law, and respect of human rights. Our Ukrainian friends can always count on Bulgaria's help in the reform processes. Having itself undergone profound political and economic transformation, my country is ready and willing to provide its expertise and to share lessons learned. Thank you for your attention.
Deputy Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs and Security Policy of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let me, on behalf of NATO, thank Canada for organizing this. Let me mention the Minister, but also Jill Sinclair, who put all of this together. And one of the reasons NATO is so grateful that this is happening is that one of our priorities is making sure that the situation in Ukraine remains on the international agenda and in the media. Sometimes it slips off, and it's great that this conference will keep the international eye on the situation in Ukraine, and I understand that the CN Tower tonight will be lit up in the colors of Ukraine, and I think that's a fantastic initiative. One of the themes earlier on today was making progress irreversible. Let me say from the point of NATO, one thing that is irreversible is the Allies' support for the territorial integrity, sovereignty of Ukraine. And that is a point that we will make this Friday. We have a NATO-Russia Council meeting, and as we do every time the Allies meet with the Russians, we will make Ukraine first and foremost on the agenda, including now the case to be made for the release of the Ukrainian sailors. The UK minister earlier today talked about reform, and he said the best defense is reform, and that's true, but of course at NATO we also think the best defense is strong defense. But in the case of Ukraine, that does need reform, and NATO is helping. We have an office and a number of programs there. The head of the office is here today. We have a comprehensive assistance package supporting reforms across the board. We've established a hybrid platform to help Ukraine defend itself against hybrid attacks, but also we benefit because Ukraine helps us understand what's happening, and we can share that experience amongst allies. And we have agreed a package to help Ukraine in the Black Sea, to reconstitute its navy. And this week, a NATO group of ships will arrive in Ukraine, headed by a Canadian warship, the Toronto. So congratulations to Canada. Let me say, we also look for Ukraine to continue its own reforms. There is a law on national security which has been passed. We look for it to be implemented, for example, when it comes to parliamentary oversight over the security services and when it comes to reform of the security services. Finally, let me say we will keep our high-level political dialogue going. We had President Zelensky recently in NATO headquarters. Of course, he's here today, and NATO will be represented soon in Ukraine at the highest political level. So we will continue along that path. Thank you very much.
Director General for Political and Security Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Italy.
I would like to thank the government of Canada for hosting us, of course. 5 years on since the Maidan events, when the Ukrainian people voiced the demand for a democratic future. Many steps, as we have heard today, have been taken, many positive steps. And we understand how difficult it is not to just reform, but to construct a political, economic, and social system which is based on foundations which are entirely different from the previous ones. So Italy recognizes the sacrifices of the Ukrainian people are going through, and we commend Kiev for what has been done so far. And we continue to stand with Ukraine in supporting its independence, territorial integrity, and its sovereignty, while being one of the key stakeholders of the reform process, namely as partner in the G7 Ambassador Support Group for reforms that we chaired in 2017 in Kiev. So we work hard together with our international Ukrainian partners to achieve what we saw as tangible progress for all Ukrainians in their everyday lives. And we will continue helping Ukraine deliver and implement those reforms which the Ukrainian voters themselves recently flagged as a priority of the future Rada and of the political establishment. And of course, we look forward to working with the new Ukrainian leadership to continue to address together the many challenges that lie ahead, including, in particular, the need to find a solution to the conflict in the East. So Italy stands ready to support President Zelensky's efforts towards reform, including those aimed at strengthening inclusivity within the country. I thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue in just a few moments. Mesdames et messieurs, on va continuer dans quelques instants.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue in just a few moments.
We have a very exciting session ahead of us. Minister Freeland, welcome back.
I'm going to start by quoting someone you might not expect to hear cited here, and that is President Vladimir Putin. On the eve of the G20, he gave an interview to my alma mater, the Financial Times, in which he announced that the liberal idea is dead. Now, yesterday was Canada Day, so I hope you'll forgive me for being a little bit extra patriotic. But the truth is that I can think of no country that more powerfully rebukes that idea, just in the way we are, than Canada. And I can think of no leader who stands more strongly for liberal democracy here at home and around the world than my Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Standing up for liberal democracy and the rules-based international order is at the heart of Canada's foreign policy. And that is why the Prime Minister so strongly supports Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We recognize that Ukraine is, quite literally, on the front lines of that fight. My Prime Minister recognizes something else as well, and that is that for all of us, the struggle for liberal democracy has to start at home. And as a final thought, I want to share with you the conviction which I believe is at the heart of Prime Minister Trudeau's fight for liberal democracy here in Canada. Our Prime Minister, and I remember so clearly how he talked about this with me when he first persuaded me to quit my job and run for political office here in Canada. Our Prime Minister believes that politics, at its core, is about service. It is, to use a phrase that will be familiar to President Zelensky, about being a servant of the people. Mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to introduce our inspiring leader, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's great to be here in Toronto. Merci, Christian.
Thank you, Christia, for your welcome. Thank you for the incredible job you're doing as Minister of Global Affairs. As you know, Minister Freeland helps us enormously in reinforcing our links with Ukraine. She is always careful that the relationship between our two countries remain a major priority. Thank you, my friend, for all that you do.
And let me extend once again a sincere congratulations and a warm Canadian welcome to the President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky. Welcome to Canada, Mr. President. With 1.3 million proud Ukrainian Canadians living from coast to coast to coast, I hope you'll feel at home here. It's been a real pleasure to host the President and his delegation in Toronto today. They're here for a bilateral visit, yes, but also for this very special gathering, the Ukraine Reform Conference. The conference, now in its third year, is a testament to the enduring friendship between our nations and our people. It brings together leaders from all facets of society, from countries around the world, to chart a path forward, as Ukraine writes an important new chapter. It is absolutely vital that, in the face of foreign interference, we reinforce democracy in Ukraine to ensure a vibrant, prosperous, and free society. When President Zelensky was elected, the people of Ukraine sent a very clear message, not only to their own political leaders, but to the entire world. They demanded meaningful change, bolder and more ambitious than ever before. And I'm very hopeful that the new Ukrainian government will deliver for its citizens. As nations around the world have learned, putting people first, prioritizing unity, and upholding the rules-based international order is the clearest path to prosperity. And as our Ukrainian friends do this important work, Canada will be there as a friend and ally every step of the way. En tant que premier
As the first Western country to recognize the independence of Ukraine in 1991, Canada has been at the side of Ukraine since the outset. And we have built many bridges over the past several years by contributing hundreds of millions of dollars in development aid, by signing a new free trade agreement, by deploying Canadian election observers to ensure the integrity of Ukraine's electoral process.
I had the immense privilege of visiting Ukraine as Prime Minister just a few years ago. And a highlight of that trip was visiting Canadian troops stationed near the western border. Since 2015, the Canadian Armed Forces have trained over 12,500 members of Ukraine's security forces as part of Project Unifier. And meeting with our servicemen and women on the ground and seeing their incredible professionalism firsthand reminded me of two things: the value of teamwork and our shared dedication to a safe and secure Ukraine. Because you see, a strong, stable Ukraine is not only important for Canada, it's important for the entire world. It is essential that we preserve a rules-based international order, and that's why we've extended Operation Unifier until 2022. And let me be clear, Canada will always defend Ukraine's sovereignty, and we will denounce Russia's aggression and illegal annexation of Crimea at every turn. Mr. President, we've been a partner to Ukraine from the beginning. You could count on us then, and you can count on us now. On security, on democratic reform, and on economic growth and prosperity, I offer you Canada's unwavering support. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great privilege to welcome to the stage the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky.
Dear Prime Minister, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, that's it, now in Ukrainian.
I'm very happy to be here today among our sincere friends. Ukraine is very grateful, and we really value the support that Canada provides to us. Despite more than 7,000 kilometers that separate our countries, we always feel that you are next to us. Thank you so much. You know, when yesterday we walked here in Toronto, I didn't feel that I'm that far away from home. You hear your native tongue, you see the language, you see the monument Lesya Ukrainka, people are smiling in the streets, and I thought maybe I'm in Ukraine, but then we entered a restaurant. I got the check and I realized, no, this is not Kiev, this is Toronto. It's cheaper here. It's not a secret that in Canada you have one of the largest Ukrainian diasporas, and we're extremely grateful for everything you're doing for Ukraine. One of the largest Ukrainian diasporas, and I hope you'll be able to come to Ukraine, not as guests, but to see your home. I hope you'll be investing in Ukraine, that you'll be able to utilize all of the rights as citizens, and at some point, I'll proudly say that we'll have the largest Canadian diasporas in the world. In reality, today, Canada sets an example of the kind of country we'd like to become, the country of prosperous and happy people who live in harmony with the outside world, in harmony with the environment and with themselves. We do not have any global ambitions, but we're ready to surprise the world in a pleasant way. Just an example, in Canada, there's only one professional NBA team, Toronto Raptors. And this team is a champion of NBA 2019. Look at me. You wouldn't be surprised if I tell you that basketball is not exactly my game. Nevertheless, this is a great example which reflects the task facing Ukraine to win when you're an underdog, to unite and attain the impossible. This is something that I mentioned in my inauguration speech when I addressed Ukrainians of the world to come back home and to build, not to repair, but to build a new state, a state that would focus on its citizens. This is not just the subject matter of our today's discussion. This is what brought me into politics. I wanted to live in a country like this. Did I understand that it's going to be hard? Definitely I did, but I can quote from the NHL legend, Wayne Gretzky, who also has Ukrainian extraction. One thing is for sure, you'll never be able to achieve your goal if you don't try. So I tried. I'll tell you about the country that we want to build through reforms. And about the principles that I will stand for. Number one, the most important, a human being is the top priority. It's not people for the state should be working for the people. Honestly speaking, for 28 years, we've had the principle of the state working for a human being, but always it was just one human being, probably in the immediate circle and family members of that particular person. We need to change the ideology of our government institutions, the mentality of public servants. Ukrainians want different relations where the citizens will be the customers and the government will just provide services. Number one, help when your help is asked for. Do not interfere when it's not needed. And number three, understand the difference between the first two concepts. Let me name the key tasks facing my team is to eradicate corruption and create independent court system, digitalize all the government services. We hope that artificial intellect will replace the government officials' intellect. Improvement of the investment climate, attracting investment into the country, everything for the single purpose to raise the standards of living of Ukrainian citizens. Obviously, I'm not saying anything very revolutionary. For any civilized country, these are standard slogans. For Ukraine, these are just dreams. We're working for these dreams now. I've been in this position for just a month, and I understand that time is very limited. And sometimes I kind of reproach myself for saying things rather than doing things right now. So a year from now, I do not want to talk about aspirations or hopes. I want to report about our successes. I strive for positive changes, not just because I want to surprise the world community. This is something my citizens expect of me. You should not only listen to the people or tell about the changes which are imminent, they are coming just very soon, but every day implement changes that people will feel and understand. This is my vision of a state for its citizens. This is the vision all Ukrainians share. They're tired of waiting. They're not asking for the impossible. They want regular earthly matters. The government which is not corrupt, strong economy, good infrastructure, security. This is why Ukrainians chose the European vector of development, and this is the choice that I'm going to defend. We'll continue working with international monetary institutions, and will introduce NATO standards in Ukraine, and will make Ukraine closer to NATO. By the way, I'd like to emphasize that today more than 300 Ukrainians participate in 8 peacekeeping operations under the auspices of United Nations, NATO, and this is a record figure. While we are not a member of NATO, in my opinion, our movement to the West should be a two-way street, and we expect specific steps from our international partners. Obviously, we cannot talk about the development of Ukraine without remembering Donbas and the Crimea. We need to return our territories and return our prisoners of war. Peace and peaceful situation is something that the country should provide for citizens. Without peace, all of the other positive changes are secondary. It's like mowing the lawn in front of the building which is on fire. The only way to peace is through diplomatic efforts, and we count on your support, and thank you so much for this support. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Additionally, there are 2 major challenges. One is economy. According to estimates, you will need 10 billion euro to restore Donbas. In the fall of this year, we'll carry out a forum in Mariupol. We'll invite international investors who'd be interested in financing humanitarian and infrastructural projects in Donbas. I invite all of you, with your money. The second challenge is informational challenge. We should not only return our territory, but our people mentally. They should not lose their contact to Ukraine. These are our citizens, and today they're afraid. They have Ukrainian passports. They also issued passports of Luhansk or Donetsk republics and also Russian passports. They're trying to confuse these people. Meanwhile, they're all Ukrainians. Whatever language they communicate in the bus, the language of our country is Ukrainian, and we should be aware of that if we want to bring these people back. It's obvious that this is the most complicated challenge that is facing Ukraine, and we'll keep repeating. The Donetsk region and the Crimea are a part and parcel of Ukraine. I know that there are many people in Russia who understand that too. And I know that there are people in Donetsk and in the Crimea who are afraid of talking about it. I know that there are a lot of people in the West who support us, but the fact that Donetsk and Crimea are parts of Ukraine, this is something that the Russian government should heed to. The whole world should keep repeating that to them. This is something that is needed not only by Ukraine. You also need that. The return of Crimea, the stable situation in the east of Ukraine is the only guarantee of the peaceful world. Remember that when you discuss sanctions next time. It's known that there is a long list of things that we need to do inside the country. But it's not only our own issues that we think about. We understand the challenges facing our planet, the climate change, the contamination of oceans. There is a say in Ukrainian, not in my backyard. And sometimes they attribute this statement to Ukrainians. This is nothing but a myth which has nothing in common with reality. We are not, our interests are not limited by our backyard. We are not indifferent, and we kept proving it to the world. Ukraine has been one of the founders of the United Nations organization. The contribution of Ukraine into the victory over Nazi Germany. We paid the cost of millions and millions of people. We were the first to give up nuclear weapons, and we paid high price for that eventually. Yes, Ukraine is ready, together with the whole world. We are ready to tackle the world issues, but at the same time, we have this question. What are the rules? We need to know these rules. We shouldn't be paying for our naive attitude, for being gullible. We need to understand when the global interest should be the priority and when the national interest should be a priority. Otherwise, we'll keep facing double standards in the world arena. So let's sit at the table and define what these rules are.
Обов'язково сюди повернутися ще раз. Зізнаюсь чесно, якби хтось тоді сказав, у якому статусі я повернусь, та які складні, дуже складні питання буду тут підіймати, я б ніколи не повірив і, напевно, розсміявся.
I would not believe that, and I would probably laugh, but I understand the responsibility laid upon myself, and I understand only together with Ukrainians and our friends in the world, we will be able to overcome that. I'm dreaming about Ukraine, which was a success. I know how difficult our path forward is, but as Wayne Gretzky said, we will not reach a goal unless you try. Thank you very much. To all of you, thank you for your support. Prime Minister, Thank you, Canada.
Україні.
Glory to Ukraine. Mr. President, thank you very much. It was an honor for all of us in Canada, and I also understand why you're a successful politician. That the first minute you mentioned Raptors and Wayne Gretzky, and now as a MP from Toronto, I grew up in Alberta, so you covered all the bases. You got me. But it's also, I would say, basketball is not my game either. Thank you very much for your participation here. Thereby, the official part is over here in the U of T. Hope to see you all at the reception or at the Ukraine House. Thank you very much. Це
de Toronto. And finally, thank you everyone very, very much for coming. This concludes our formal program here at the University of Toronto in my riding. I hope to see everyone at this evening's reception and at Ukraine House later this week. Щиро вам дякую. Thank you.